Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how your identity is determining your reality. And I'm going to show you absolute proof. And if it's not already obvious, it'll be obvious by the end of this video. That's my hope. And so you're familiar with how I create this little model for your identity. This is your identity 1.0, and this is your the next iteration of your identity. Well, this identity um, is bending the fabric of the present reality you're in. There is some kind of engagement going on between this version of reality and the version of your identity that is sustaining your present reality. And so, what happens is when people want to actually go to the next level of their reality, maybe they have a outcome they're trying to manifest. They want value. They want to be more valuable in the marketplace. They want to be more fulfilled. They want to have more friends. They want to be social. They want to work on some skill, right? They are trying to enter into a new realm. Let's say it's 2.0. And to do that, they need to upgrade their identity to have the level of influence on the environment around them that bends the outcome they desire into their orbit. Right? Very simple idea, right? And the proof that your identity is determining your current reality, this is super important, right? Your identity is proportional to your current reality. Not your destiny, but your reality. Your current, you could say the current iteration of your destiny, because your destiny is your destiny is not, the way I see it, is not some final outcome. Your destiny is the the different courses of your reality, the different changes of your reality based on what you're doing to yourself, what you're allowing yourself to accept, sustain, disconnect from, whatever you're doing right now. So we can say that your environment right now is a mirror reflection of your identity. And so, and this includes your lived experiences, because sometimes physical reality is a bit confusing, but you can see that every decision that you make to change your outcome starts with your identity. So you should never rely on your external factors as an excuse, right? So why am I saying all of this? I'm saying this because I was going in the direction of the very absolute proofs are in the extremes. It's because the identity, our identities are really good at stabilizing and entering into some kind of default with the hope of having a low energy engagement with reality, right? So that's the thing. When you're constantly changing, when you're actually in flux, right? Flux equals high energy. You are using a lot of energy when you are trying to upgrade yourself, update yourself, improve yourself, right? That's a lot of low energy tasks, right? The who you are now is the culmination of a lot of efforts to the point that your current identity is in a very stable configuration, a very comfortable default. This is we want to move our identity so that the next iteration becomes our default and we require less energy to sustain that level of um, identity expansion, right? So I was trying to say, yes, the extremes. So the proof is in the extremes because that's where you really see rapid reality adjustments. You wanna quickly regress in reality, regress in your identity. A very simple example that we all know. If you are struggling with drug addiction, or you know someone is struggling with drug addiction, like the higher the addiction, the more of an impact on the quality of life, right? Their reality is instantly morphed. Everything responds to that addiction. They throw everything away. They filter out experiences, right? All of their lived experiences is filtered out by this addiction because it is absorbing the whole of their identity. So This is a powerful proof that someone can be a high achiever today and tomorrow they could absolutely be in poverty and absolute shambles simply because they degraded or regressed their identity, right? And some people actually are addicted, but their addiction is sort of in the same direction of their identity expansion, and that is temporary because eventually what you want, where you want to get to is whatever state you are in life, you want your identity to be able to handle that new space by default. So people use drugs, right? Let me see if I can illustrate this better. It looks like my markers, I might need new markers. My markers are dying. Jeez. So follow along, right? So you've seen this idea, right, of the I'll draw this because that's going to be my example of the simple fight or flight response that I say is not drugs, but I say is integral to identity expansion, right? You want your identity to expand to get to the next level. There are some basic reactions going on inside that we need to modulate, right? If we want to expand, we need our fear our fear impulses to be reduced slightly, and we want the overall push of faith or courage, right, or fight to be higher so that we can become the next iteration of ourselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way I've come to model how people change themselves, and it's so simple that it's easy to follow, right? Even the and anyone at any level can follow this and say, you know what, I can make changes to my life because all I need to do to get to the next level is decide that I want to do that and be fully aware of the reactions going in me that are impeding me from getting to the next level, and then get those out of the way and move and believe in myself, believe in God, right? Believe in the journey, right? A lot of people are doing a lot with just faith. Like a lot of people are moving heavily with faith. So what happens, right, is there's a lot of activity going on in the faith area. Their identity is expanding as a result, right? Their identity is expanding as a result, and they are pushing on their current reality, morphing that reality, bringing things into their spiritual, into their plane of existence, and likewise, um, what is happening, right, is that there are drugs that people take, right, and it's they're addicted to it, but those drugs have an effect that seem to help inhibit their fears. I don't recommend this because this is not sustainable, right? Because drugs in and of themselves in the long run, right, when this is no longer available or more and more is required, and it starts impacting and coming back on the identity in a way that causes it to contract, then the person has to now struggle in the next iteration. Let's say on drugs they were able to get to 5.0, right, and rushed past several iterations of their identity freely on drugs without building the necessary internal reactions and resistance and internal identity infrastructure, right? That identity infrastructure that expands. A very simple example, right? I can't compare my identity infrastructure with somebody like Elon Musk. He comes to mind because of the guy does so much, right? Or any of the or some investment bankers, right? I can't say my identity infrastructure, for example, against risk tolerance. If I want to compare my experience with that of an investment banker, there are certain things inside, right, that has been developed, right. The problem is if people use drugs as a gateway, they start to fill in some of that gap with emptiness, right? So the drugs are giving them shortcuts instead of dealing with actual issues, and it's creating gaps in their identity. And these chickens will come to roost because in the 5.0, I hope you can see this. I hope this isn't being cut off by the camera. But in the 5.0 iteration, when testing comes to test the integrity of your identity, then hopefully you'll have the person might have better risk tolerance, more patience, more experience, right? Better ways of modulating their emotions, right? That will help keep the collapse of the identity in the new dimension, right? Or maybe there's something they're desiring and it's now manifested in their plane of existence, but now it is pushing pushing on them, right? And or maybe threatening to leave, but because they don't have the necessary infrastructure to sustain the pressure on the dimension that they're living in, then this item either that they desire, or this value that they wanted, right, either escapes or collapses upon them, right? And worst case scenario is they regress, and they regress super quickly, and because of the adverse effects, right? Maybe that emptiness infrastructure is creating worse pressure inside of them, negative pressure inside of them. Then they quickly find that they are regressing faster than they expected, right? And this is not what we want. We want, as we are gradually expanding our identity to represent the new planes of existence we want to start living in, these new areas of abundance. You can put any different word you want, right? Expertise, right? Better relationship, better communicator, right? Sorry, I'm just checking my mic, right? We want to make sure that at each step we're building the proper internal infrastructure. And sometimes that takes time, sometimes that takes patience, that sometimes that takes journaling, sometimes that takes really could take therapy, right? There's several things that people do to prepare themselves for the next plane of their existence. A big one is prayer. I'm a Christian, I pray a lot. I pray because it strengthens me on the inside. It builds me and aligns me with what God wants from me, right? And so that alignment is powerful because it allows me to expand, right? Expands my faith, reduces my fear. And honestly, fear is not a bad thing. We've talked, I think I actually deleted a video by accident, or actually recorded a video that was muted. And um, and it explains so much, but that video is lost. So I got to recapture some of these ideas. But I, I think that we underestimate just how much the problem is us most of the time, right? If if you would get out of your way, if you would get out of your way, we minimize your fears, um, expand your faith, then your identity will rapidly evolve, will begin to evolve. And I think, and it takes time, but there's a compounding reaction going on once you sustain a level of increased faith and reduced fear. Your reality will begin to respond. Your reality will begin to respond because what you have around you right now is an exact result of who you are in the moment. I think when you're born, a lot of this is mostly just external. Like when you're born, a lot of external forces influence your identity. But as you're maturing, you are expected to start pushing back. You're expected to maintain your integrity, the boundaries of your identity. You're expected to claim a unique identity and to start progressing in the right direction. And that might happen. Neighbors are talking on the outside, but maybe at the age of 18, for example, you might be expected to start growing in the right direction, right? Start choosing your own path other than what others gave you, right? And time is what you need to rapidly change who you are, right? You can't You can't do these things overnight. Why? Because, I mean, you can do some things overnight, right? But the game is on the sustained updates and incremental expansion of your identity, because a lot of things will show up with time. A lot of seeds you planted 6 months ago, they will come to blossom. A lot of eggs that you have, they're gonna come to roost. The chickens are coming to roost at some point. Is that the right saying? Right? At some point, everything that you have planted months ago, years ago, they will start having repercussions and start impacting your life down the line to challenge or support the version of you today. And so when I see my life, and when you look at your life, it's a culmination of everything that's happened to you, that you've allowed and that has happened to you, but that you've allowed or disallowed into your life, right? And that's currently sustaining the version of you today. Now, if you can identify the things that you're that you're supporting, that you're not challenging, that you should be challenging, if you can identify those things and begin to um, uh, uh, do the correct balanced work on them, whether it's tossing them aside or accepting the right friendships into your life, doing the right, getting rid of those bad habits, inviting new habits into your life, changing the content you consume, right? And getting new content inside you, producing good content instead of producing evil content. All of this works to your favor to become the kind of person you want to be. So this is all about the reality of how your identity is shaping your current experience, right? Identity is shaping your current experience. And if you want to change your experience, you need to transform your identity. And that's easier said than done, definitely. And I know for a fact that this is something that I've been observing about myself lately, and that's why this very simple ideas are being written down and being shared, right? And I hope it'll be helpful to someone. Someone might say, "Oh my gosh, this is so simple. I'm not even going to waste my time with this." One man's trash is another man's treasure. Another person, another individual listening to me might say, "You know what? You've got something there. You've got something there. I'm going to try and listen a bit more into this, and then start seeing how I can sustain the elements that I'm looking forward to in the new identity before they arrive, instead of just saying, "Oh, I want to be rich. Oh, I want to have all of this." Change who you are, whether that's changing locations, changing thought patterns, whatever it is, anything to change the you that is currently manifesting your present experience. And if you want a better experience, one thing you can do immediately is become a better you. So I hope that helps. I know that I'm going into a lot of details in this stuff. I'm loving this topic, and I can easily move to another topic, but this one won't let me go. So I'm just going to keep talking about it until I exhaust everything that I need to say on this topic. And I'm also learning things that like I'm learning things that are helping me in real life. Like there were moments where I was having some issues, and I was struggling through some days, and I said, what? These are not going to hinder my identity expansion. This is all part of the package. And I worked with myself, worked on myself, and I just made sure that I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing through those moments. And then when that phase briefly, that brief phase left, right, I found that I was actually on better footing. It was just a cloud. It was a temporary test of the integrity of my identity, of the person I was trying to become. So I want you to focus on working on yourself, right? And the identity, the destiny, excuse me, that you're trying to manifest will be shaped by the level of how much attention you're paying to who you're becoming. So I hope you like this video. I hope you are able to comment. If you have some time, comment how you think these ideas can help you. Is it true that your identity is shaping your reality, right? To what degree does external forces fully impact all of us in our identities, right? In our lived experiences? And how much of that is really us. And I think we should handle the parts we can handle, right? So I'll see you in the next video.